What's up, everybody? So I did a thing. I've been casually looking for one of these Yamaha BW 80s, big wheel 80s. This was the second motorcycle I had as a kid. These things bring pretty good money. In good condition or fully restored condition, they bring about 3 or 5 grand. You know, this one is not in that condition. Somebody, I guess, had done a barn clean out for somebody, and it's allegedly been sitting in a barn for 25 years. You can see it's, pretty dirty. But anyhow, they're saying the motor is locked up. They don't know if it's due to rust or mechanical failure or whatever. But he had this thing listed for $250 on Marketplace, and I seen the listing, and it was a 3-hour-old listing. At that price, normally it's gone. And guy said he still had it. I said, look, I'll give you your full asking price. I'm 2 hours away. Just delete the listing, and I'll come get it from you. And at that point, he had already had 50 messages on it. I'm surprised he didn't try and hold out for more money or something like that. But yeah, so we got this now. But this is a pretty fun item. It seems like this and the PW80, which is a taller, skinny tired bike, share a lot of parts as far as the engine goes and everything like that. So we'll be looking into this, seeing why the will not stop crying. What do you need, bud? What do you need? You need a steak dinner? You need a playmate? What do you got going on? It's always got to be all about her. Anyhow, so yeah, we're gonna mess around with this thing and see what we can do. Hopefully, get that top end freed up, and probably not take it for a spin, because this thing needs a throttle cable and brake cables, and these parts are still available. You can see that brake cable, it's broken and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this ought to be fun. We'll have something to putt around on the road back in the woods, maybe go get the mail or whatever. If you're wondering what's going on, this is a two-stroke motorcycle. The engine is seized up. You know, is it the top end, is it the bottom end? It's hard to say. I could look inside of the cylinder board, see the piston. I didn't see too much of the sidewalls of the cylinder, but with this being a two-stroke, we got lucky. The piston was at a point in the stroke to where you could spray penetrating oil in there. Some people will do a blend of this, transmission fluid, and then actual zinc to break engines free. So this one appears to have had the oil injection delete on it. So somebody could have mixed the gas wrong. Somebody could have assumed it had oil injection and put straight gas in it and seized it up. The guy said this thing had been sitting in a barn for 25 years. That's long enough to have the engine just kind of get stuck, if you know what I'm saying, to where it's not seized, it's just stuck. So we're going to let this penetrating oil do its thing for a little bit and just maybe go through a little more of this bike and see what we got going on. You know, just doing a preliminary check. I mean, the kickstart is missing. The bike's a little beat up, and as the kids say these days, you gotta pick up on the vibes. My guess on this is that this kid was out there dropping the hammer on this thing. You can see these are original tires. They have some life left in them, so this thing did get rode pretty good, possibly on the roads. And I always said, if you're not wrecking, you're not riding. And this kid was wrecking because these handlebars are bent pretty good, stuff like that. But the kickstart is missing. All right, so to me, I think Dad and the son came to some type of an impasse, and he pulled the kickstart off so the kid couldn't ride it. Now this is a 3-speed automatic. I don't believe that you can bump start one of these. Now, if this was just a regular old bike with a clutch, you could bump start it. So I think the kid lost his privileges to riding this bike via kickstart removal. So I've got one of those ordered. I just ordered an aftermarket one off of eBay. It was like 16 bucks or something like that. So in the meantime, I'm going to take some of these plastics off and stuff so I can get to the actual frame and see what's going on. Normally these will have a sticker on the head here that says what year it is and all that. The VIN is still intact. Apparently on these Yamahas, there's a 17-digit VIN. The 10th digit of the VIN indicates the year. It could be a letter, or it could be a number depending on the year. Because this is an older one, it would be a letter. We've got a J that says that this is a 1988, 1988. It's a 1988 BW 80, Yamaha Big Wheels 80. And these share a lot of parts with the BW 80. So I was looking around, and you can do what they call a plastic swap, where you get all plastics and a seat for like 80, 90 bucks off of Amazon or eBay, including the gas tank. These gas tanks are really hard to find, and you could just put the PW80 plastics on. The thing was, the fenders would look different. These are wider for the wider tires. But yeah, this is a cool bike. This bike in general was my second bike. My dad was real big on not tearing the grass up, so that's why I ended up with this. But it's a 2-stroke 80. It's not a dog, it's a spicy 80. I really enjoyed this bike as a kid, and you can put different suspension kits on these to lift them up now for like older person like myself. They sell big board kits and things like that, so we may end up turning this thing up and putting some different suspension on it. But I had a great time with this bike, and then because of what I mentioned, my dad had steered me towards a big wheel 200 after I had outgrown this, and that is a 4-stroke bike. And I don't know if it was just the one I had, but there was a flat spot in the middle of the throttle. It was a heavy pig. It was a dog. It was 4-stroke. I'm a 2-stroke guy till the day I die, okay? And I hated that bike. I absolutely hated it, and I just wouldn't ride it. I rode his 250X 4-wheeler, which at the time was kind of cool, but they're a complete and total dog as well. But that was a much funner bike to ride than the Big Wheels 200. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling some stuff apart on this, and let's just see what we got. Fender's a little bitched up. It looks like to me we might have been riding some wheelies and caught the pavement here the way it's wore out. And it looks like somebody spray painted these plastics. If you look here, you can see that tank has yellowed severely. What I'll probably end up doing with this is pressure washing the paint off and maybe do a little wet sanding to see if we can get through the yellow down to the white. These tanks are very rare and expensive to replace. So if I can't wet sand through the yellowing, I might just end up repainting this tank white because that's the only real option. Now the one that I had was what I'm going to call the more common and the more desirable color scheme. This one was, you know, some blue accents, white plastics, and then silver wheels. The one that I had was gold wheels, red forks, red swing arm, red airbox, and a red seat. So I really like the way that those look better. I'm not really concerned with like doing some kind of a stock restoration or anything like that. I'll probably end up just doing what I'm going to call a resto mod or a custom rebuild or something like that. I would probably like to go back to the color scheme that my old one had. Once you get older, you start wanting to buy stuff that you used to have that you don't have anymore. And here I am, 46 years old on memory lane. And that's the way us men are built, I guess. Yeah, I was looking into suspension stuff. These kind of things, they're sprung and valved for whatever they consider to be the ideal customer or rider. There's no adjustment for the preload on the spring or the dampening or rebound or any of that. It looks like you can get some shock kits for these or some different shocks to make them taller or more. Yeah, the air filter's gone. Not really a good sign because well, two-strokes are high maintenance. You're supposed to be replacing pistons and honing or boring the cylinders on a very regular basis. Even though that this is not like a peak performance two-stroke, it's still something that you're supposed to be doing. So I would say it's highly likely that this thing will have low compression if we can get this engine unstuck, and that's just the way it is. I would personally like to do the big bore kit. I haven't looked into that too much. It's not cheap if you do a nice kit, but I'd be really interested in having a carburetor that matches that. It seems like you can go from 80 cc's to 95 cc's with some porting and all that. I don't know if you're able to jet this carburetor to a point to where it will feed that top end what it needs, and or if you can get jets that would do what you need to do. So one thing I'm noticing is that this bracket for the exhaust is bent. Let's see if I can just muscle that out a little bit. It appears to be where it belongs now. And I am going to pull this exhaust off because it seems like somebody did an oil injection delete on this, and I'm hoping that they just didn't unplug the feed hoses and just leave everything wide open. There is a block off plate for that, so that way you're not letting crap get into the motor.
when I take this exhaust pipe off, we might be able to get a better look at the cylinder and see what's going on. A lot of times you'll be able to see the piston skirt. I'm a big fan of the PB Blaster. There's one other product that's kind of better than this, but this is what I have. I'm going to heat these guys up. It'll probably end up catching on fire, but it's good to heat these guys before you pull them out. Don't be the typical stupid guy and grab the hot bolt and start cussing. Now they do make some nice nickel plated pipes and silencers for the PWs. I think they'll fit this, but I'm not totally sure. They're not cheap though. It's like a little up there, so I don't know if we're going to do that or not, but I would like to. All right, I'm going to pull you guys off the tripod. This piston skirt looks really nice. There was some rust that dropped down in there that I'd like to get out of there, but let's take a peek and see what we got going on. Let me get the flashlight. Hopefully that helps. Well, it's kind of creating a strobe effect with the camera, but if you can look past the strobe, no scoring. Let me see if I can focus. No scoring. You can see the dirt there. So what I'm going to do is get that crud out of there and hit that with some PB Blaster. I really think that this the rings are probably just stuck in the cylinder and that this thing will break free. I'm going to go ahead and click this off right now. It's going to take a little bit for me, but it'll be just a second for you. I'm going to let this thing go ahead and marinate, and what I'm going to end up doing after that is the case that we got the cylinder full of PB Blaster. We've got this full. It should wrap around that piston and break it loose. And what I'd like to do when I flip this over is see if they've done what I'm going to call a proper injection pump delete, where you actually put a CNC machine plug where the gear mechanisms and pump goes, and remove the gear and all that. If they have not done that, we're going to go ahead and get started on the process of doing that. All right, so this thing's been soaking for a little bit. What I'm going to do is, maybe you could bump start this thing because I put it in gear. I'm going to jockey this wheel back and forth and try and break this top end loose. Piston's already moving. So it's somewhat hydro locked, but this piston is now free because this, the top of the cylinder is full of penetrating oil. So this piston is free now. I'm going to pull you off the tripod so you can see what I see. All right, well, let's focus in on this piston. I'm rocking the wheel. Now see that? That's the piston ring. It's going up and down. So this piston is now free. And let's get a good focus on it. That piston looks good. I don't see any rust in the ring lands or anything like that. So there was probably just some surface rust in the cylinder. So I'm just gonna kind of work this back and forth a little bit and then flip it over. You can see some of the crankcase oil is, let me focus here. Crankcase oil is running out of the vent because it's upside down. This oil looks very clean, but it's got a little bit of a murky tinge to it. So I don't know, I don't think any water got in there. It just might be old oil or the particular type. But yeah, so this top end is free. We might actually get this thing running. We'll see. Okay, so one thing that I did off camera is I did about 13 wraps of Gorilla Tape around the spline shaft for the kickstart. And what I'm going to do is take a pair of vice grips and clamp it onto here. That way that, these teeth don't mar up the spline shaft from the factory. All right, so you can see that this thing is now moving free. I'm going to go ahead and pull this spark plug out and let some of this PB blaster run out of here. Well, this thing's in the way, so I'm just going to spin the back tire and let it out. Alright, it is free. You can hear it spinning over real nice. And I'm going to hose this thing down with a little more PB because there could be some surface rust in there. That would be nice to get out. All right, well, now that we've done that, let's take this cover off and see what we got going on in regards to this oil pump delete. So the oil pump is underneath here. And this is the injection oil pump if you're not familiar. So for the two-stroke, you have gas that gets mixed in the oil. And this is the pump for that oil. All right, so It appears to me that this is still open, okay? Nobody has actually properly removed the oil pump. And then this is where basically the oil is pumped out of here and then into the carb. That is wide open. None of that stuff has been blocked off. So I'm kind of curious as to what's going on here. You know, there's none of the tank is not there, the lines are not there. So I don't know if when this thing was running, somebody had this thing running with basically, I mean, to me that would create a vacuum leak. So I don't know if they basically had adjusted the idle to where it would run fine with a vacuum leak, and maybe dirt got sucked in there and scored the piston up or whatever. But I think the engine was stuck, not seized from just surface rust sitting. We'll have to see. So at this point in time, I'm going to say I'm going to probably just put this back together for now, and then if I can get this thing running, we'll just get the proper block off. We'll have to take this engine cover off here, and what we'll end up doing is there's a gear in there that drives this pump to pump the two-stroke oil from the reservoir that used to be in here. We'll have to take that. There's a snap ring off, and after we do that, we'll take a couple of screws out that hold this pump in. We'll pull this out, remove that gear, take this whole mechanism out, and then put this block off plate in there. And then some people put this cover back on, some don't. I may put the cover back on, but it's kind of, I'm not saying it's useless, but if you were to, you know, plug these off with RTV, then, you know, no dirt could get into the housing. If you had the block off plate in there and then this just open, dirt can build up in there. It's not going to get in the motor. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You can do whatever you want there, I guess. At this point, we're just going to go ahead and pull the carb off and see what that looks like. All right, at this point, it seems like the needle and seat may be stuck in the body of the carburetor. So this thing does need a new throttle cable, but there is a chance that we could get it working. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the actual choke assembly off of the bike, and I don't know if that's going to come off. Yeah, it looks like it might slide off. So I'm going to disassemble the actual twist throttle and get the cable off at the twist throttle, and then just remove it from the bike that way. We're probably going to need a cable anyhow. I'll try lubing it just to see if we can get it to work, and it may work, and we won't have to buy a cable. I think what I'm going to do right now is take this bowl off, because the needle is stuck in the seat, and I can get some lube down into that from the bottom. And we'll see what's going on down in this bowl. See how cruddy and funky that is. Oh wow, look at this. That's wild. Yeah, with this type of corrosion, it's very possible that this thing has seen ethanol fuel. I would say it's fairly unlikely that this carburetor is going to run again without new floats. I'm not seeing the needle and seat. That could have fell out in that pile of garbage, but I doubt it. I'm going to let this thing soak in some fuel or something like that and see what we get. But I would say we're definitely going to need a carb to get this thing running. There it is, we do have it. So I'm going to stick this back in here. That's a good sign. It's a real good sign. But yeah, I'm going to find something for this to soak in. I might just hit this with some PB Blaster while we're at it. I know this video is not sponsored by PB Blaster. It just works really good. Oh wow, you know what? We are going to need a carb. If you look right here, I don't know if the camera will focus on it or not. This is the, there's a little pin that rides through here that the floats on. Well, that has actually been corroded away over here. So this carb is junk. That's part of the actual carb body. So let's just call it a wrap on this, if you know what I'm saying. We might be able to salvage the throttle cable. It seems like the cable might be moving, but the needle and seat is stuck. So I'm gonna let that soak so I can get that out of there, and at least maybe we can save this throttle cable. All right, so since we got issues with the carburetor, we're not going to be able to get it running, so we may as well go ahead and proceed with this injection oil pump block off plate and the correct removal of the gear and whatnot. So we're going to get into that. Let me get my PB Blaster. So I'm going to go ahead, these are all Phillips screws, which is a bad design. I'm going to hit all these with some PB Blaster. Now, you might feel inclined to go after these with a screwdriver. I would highly discourage you from doing that. We're going to use an impact screwdriver with a tip that fits in there perfectly. If it does not fit perfectly, do not use it, okay? Another thing I'm going to do is spray a little bit of this penetrating oil along where the case gasket is. We're going to hit this thing with a rubber mallet. It seems like I feel like, yeah, it just broke loose. So one thing you want to make sure when you're pulling this case cover off, keep your hand, I sprayed a little bit of lube on this too because all these seals are old. Keep your thumb on the kickstart mechanism because this could come out, and if that spring undoes itself, it could be a little bit of a pain in the butt. I would also discourage you from taking a screwdriver or anything and prying between the two cases. Well, it looks like the gasket stayed intact. There's a little milkiness in here. So, I mean, this isn't a liquid cooled engine. Watch out, there's a shim right there. We're gonna put that on here so it doesn't go bye-byes. Now we're gonna need to replace this gasket anyhow, so I'll have to take that off. So I don't know if it's just moisture from condensation. Like I said, it's not a liquid cooled engine, so it didn't come from the cooling system, which would have been bad news. But I'm going to go ahead and pull this paper gasket out so we can get to the thing we're going for. Generally speaking, everything looks really good in here. I'm sure you can probably see that on the screen. The clutches, where's my flashlight at? The clutches appear to have some thickness to them. Yeah, so what we're going to end up doing here is kind of a repeat of what we started to do earlier to get this apart. Now, let me take this out of gear. What you're going to do is spin this thing over till you see the part of the snap ring that you need to pry on. It's hard for me to tell where the orientation's at right now. It's actually just about where we need it. So what I'm going to do is grab a pick tool, our 10 millimeter, and we're going to get after it. Now, I know we've already covered this, but we're going to go ahead and start to take this off. And if you do like I did and you happen to drop that C-clip, don't freak out, because you can get it with a magnet, it's steel, and if not, you could use some brake clean or some gasoline or whatever to flush it out of where it's at. But you definitely do need to get that out regardless. All right, now to get to the screw, you're gonna have to, this is what the cable would normally do. As you give it throttle, this is like the carburetor, it opens the valve for this pump. You gotta spin it so you can get to the screw. I'll tell you one interesting memory I had with the Yamaha Big Wheels 80. So I had built a jump in the backyard and I felt like I had it figured out. And my mom was kind of a little bit into photography. She had a neat camera. I said, hey, can you take some pictures of me doing this jump? I was pushing it to the limits. I thought I might die, but I wanted to show my friends pictures of the jumps that I did. So I risked life and limb for probably 15 different jumps, and we realized there was no film in the camera. So what are you gonna do? All right, now here's the one part where I've seen some people doing some different stuff. So you could, if you wanted to, leave this in here, but there's a little pin that you got to knock out. And that's another thing that could fall on the motor that we're going to have to be careful of. So I've got that knocked halfway out, and what I want to do is spin this around and get a grip on it with this, if I can. All right, so there's that pin. We managed to not drop that down on the motor. And I'm going to stick this pin back in so we don't lose it. You know what I'm actually going to do? I'm going to stick this back on and then do the pin. All right, well, I've driven that pin back on. That way we don't lose any of this stuff in case we ever want to reuse it at some point. This is not on the correct orientation, but it's there. So we've got our pump with a spring and all that jazz. There's the little oil clip. Yeah, so I'm going to set this stuff off to the side. Oh, I'm going to try getting some gasoline and seeing if I can flush it out with that. All right, guys. So I found it. What I ended up doing was, you can't see my hand, but I started jiggling the shifter, and that messes around with this little clutch lever, and there it was. It fell right out. So we've recovered that. That's a big deal. I'm glad that we found that, and we can put that with the rest of our parts. All right, well, I'm going to wrap this video up right about here. There's a couple of things that we still need to do that I'm going to probably do off camera, which is taking a razor, excuse me, I had a burp. Take a razor blade and remove all of this gasket material. And then also here as well, clean that area out. As you can see, the inside of this engine is freaking cherry looking. I mean, no varnish. We did kind of technically rinse this out with gasoline, so you know it may have cleaned things up a little bit, but this bottom end is not rusty at all. Everything's looking good. As you can see, I actually popped it into gear, but you know, the engine is spinning over freely. It seems as if it's making compression. I got the plug in there, but not all the way tight. I wouldn't be surprised if we have low compression though, just because these things, you know, everybody rode these things hard, and you know, no air filter, that open vacuum leak on the carb where the oil injection should have been put into. This thing's probably been sucking up a good bit of dirt, so we'll get it running as is and see how it runs. But don't be surprised if we end up doing a cool big bore kit and a custom carb and stuff like that. So as of right now, we got to order some gaskets, that block off plate, a carb, possibly a throttle cable. I know we definitely are going to need the front brake cable, so we're going to get some parts together and get back after it again. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you're having fun doing stuff that you like to do too. But I'll see you all on the next one.